Hello and welcome to another special edition with Justice Watch Radio with attorney Zuluwale. We are here with Mr. Diop, a prison nurse whom was wrongfully convicted of workers' compensation fraud in June 2019.
Thank you for having me. My name is Ndiawar Diop. I was born in Dakar, Senegal, and I've been living in the United States of America for 18 years. I've been working as a nurse, prison nurse in California Department of Correction in Chino prison for 12 years before I was prosecuted for workman's comp fraud. The reason I believe that I was wrongfully convicted for a workman's comp fraud is I was assaulted by a serial criminal who is doing life in prison for 3 strikes. And he's been terrorizing the whole staff, the medical staff and the custody staff, until he intentionally poked me with a dirty needle. As a nurse working in Chino prison, the protocol wants us to prepare the needle and give it to the inmate to inject themselves. After they're done, they're supposed to remove the needle part and put it in a cup that we provide, so we can put it in a disposable container. And the inmate didn't respect the protocol. After he injected himself with the dirty needle, he used that needle just to enter the port where I was writing down the numbers of his insulin check. Then I was surprised, and then he poked me in my right index fingers. The custody come and helped me to get out of the situation. Then I went on treatment for a couple of years before I returned back to work. They waited 4 years and 7 months before they come to work at 4 in the morning and telling me they're investigating about a case that is 4 years and 7 months old. I requested to have my lawyer present, but they told me it's just a formal interrogation. They're just gonna find out what happened. And then I talked to them, and obviously on December 21st, 2017, I was arrested at work. No, sorry, I was arrested in January 12, 2018, and then took to the Riverside County jail and I was told there that I was being prosecuted for workman's comp fraud. The reason I believe I didn't have a fair trial is the judicial system didn't allow me to use all those witnesses available that was being terrorized by this serial criminal inmates, George Philpott, because he got 6 write-up by staff, 3 of them coming from my fellow nursing workers, and then 3 of them was from the custody. The judicial system didn't want me to use any of those witnesses to testify to justify the way this inmate was terrorizing the staff. They allowed me to only use one person at the beginning, which happened to be another nurse from Africa who has the same accent as me, and not to allow me to use the American people. And to me, it seems like they're designing the trial to be people from Africa against the system. The second reason that I believe that I didn't have a fair trial is the correctional officer actually who came to arrest the inmate. When they called him in court, he said the same story, and I didn't see this guy for like over 6 years. They called him, and then he said the same story that I called him, saying that I was assaulted by an inmate. After the court recess, he and the prosecutor and the investigator went into a small room, a tiny room on the side of the court. And when we start again the trial, he said to the judge that he wanna change his version of the fact.
The allegation was that at the time that Mr. Diop was stabbed by the inmate, he had actually given a preliminary statement as to what had taken place. Not a full statement, but keeping in mind that this was a statement that was given basically at the time that the incident took place, which he had made the statement, according to the document, I believe, that he had been poked. Throughout this process, obviously, by being hurt on a job, he had to make a report, and ultimately he was deposed. And during the deposition, he used the word stabbed. And keeping in mind that Mr. Diop is someone who, his first language is Wolof. He speaks French, Italian, and English. He probably speaks those other languages better than he speaks English. And so he used those words interchangeably, but pretty much, at least from my perspective, and I think a rational person's perspective, they pretty much mean the same because it's the same conduct. It's one, you can poke someone intentionally, or you can stab someone intentionally. Vice versa, you can poke someone accidentally, or you can stab somebody accidentally. The allegation was that when he made the second statement, that he used the word to indicate intent so that he could get more money through workers' compensation, where an intentional act would allow him for more money than an accidental act. That's the allegation. And so if you can see how trivial that is. And so that was the allegation. The interesting thing about the trial, and probably one of the most interesting aspects of the trial, was the testimony of the officer who was present during the incident. What the officer said was that the inmate stabbed Mr. Diop. In other words, he said that he recalls Mr. Diop saying that he was stabbed at the time that the incident took place. He also indicated the fact that he had to, take measures to take the inmate into custody, and that he treated it as if a nurse had actually, it was consistent with what he would normally do when a nurse had been attacked. That was his testimony and that was on direct examination. After his examination, there was a recess that was taken. During the recess, he met, and when I say he, the officer who was present, who had testified consistently with what Diop alleged happened. During the break, he comes back. So he takes a break, speaks with the prosecutor, speaks with the investigator of the case. Then when he comes back and testifies, he states that he was wrong about his prior testimony. Now, clearly, there's something wrong with that, because it wasn't like he said something that was, unusual or out of the way or didn't make any sense. He literally gave testimony under oath consistent with exactly what Mr. Diop said had happened. And so he did change at that point. There was a testimony change. Some of the other things that I believe, and I'll allow Mr. Diop to elaborate on what took place. He did say that we were not allowed to bring all the witnesses who would testify that this particular inmate had caused them problems, particularly from the nursing staff. We felt that this testimony was important because I think the more we were able to present a pattern, the more likely the jury would understand that this is a continuing problem. To the extent that the court made the decision not allowing it to happen was almost like suggesting that it would have been repetitive. Mm-hmm. But I think his rights were denied. I think that hearing two people say something is different than 5 people saying something. That makes a big difference. Because, they would understand that Mr. Diop was telling the truth. I mean, what is the likelihood that a inmate who, number one, was someone that was serving a life sentence for similar conduct, violent conduct, and someone who had been, having issues with other nurses in the past, is more likely to have done something intentionally. Plus, when he did it, there was an issue about him having, what was he said that he had? It was
hepatitis C.
Hepatitis C.
He told me, you're gonna have malaria like in Africa. Not, you're just gonna have hepatitis C, not malaria like in Africa. That's what he told me when I said, what you doing, man?
And also when he testified, he stated that he didn't like him. And on the witness stand, I don't like him. If I could, I'd beat his butt. His butt. But he didn't say butt, he said something else. He says this on the stand.
Yes. Another reason that I believe that I didn't have a fair trial is we are here in court face to a white dominant jury, and the judge is making so many jokes to the point that when my lawyer forget to say, may I approach the witness, the judge threatened to get him tased by the bailiff in front of the jury. And actually everybody was looking at each other. To me, it was a message that the judge was sending. It has a racial tones to me. That's how I see it, because it's not no fun to play with a black jury in front of a white dominant jury, playing that you're gonna tase a black lawyer because he forget to say, may I approach the witness. There is also another incident that, and I thought it was normal, because anytime the judge retract to the judge's chambers with my lawyer and the prosecutors, I have this investigator who was entertaining with the jury, and I was told by the bailiff, anytime I turned my back to talk to my wife and my 2 kids present, the bailiff told me I have no right to talk to my family, even when the judge is not there. I was prevented from talking to my family, but they allowing the investigator to talk to the jury, to laugh, to make jokes, to laugh, and they were all having entertaining themselves while I was just sitting right here, just like feeling like I'm already guilty. I'm innocent. They have to prove that I was guilty, but they prevented me from talking to the jury, from talking to my family, and they allow the investigator who worked with the prosecutor to find me guilty, allowing him to talk to the jury. And that happened inside the court and outside. But to me, I was the only one who's not supposed to talk to the jury.
Again, so what happened is that during the time period in which we went back into the judge's chambers for a conference, the investigator, and when he's talking about the investigator who sat by the prosecutor throughout the trial, the one who testified in the trial, and the one who who investigated the whole case. He was the primary investigator. Mm-hmm. That the allegation is that during the time period in which we were in chambers, that he was allowed to have dialogue with the jury, which it suggests unfamiliarity, over familiarity with the jury, and some degree of impropriety to allow something like that to happen. So nobody should be speaking to the jury during the trial. And I think that what happens in many of these cases, judges try, sometimes you'll have, and I'm not saying the judge did it in this particular case, but sometimes people can indulge or ingratiate themselves with the jury. And the problem with anybody that is an actor within the jury, within a trial, whether it be a bailiff, whether it be a clerk, whether it be a judge, no matter what it is, they should not engage with the jury in a way in which it is to entertain. So in other words, you may have, in some cases, you may see a judge who talks about sports. who talks about television, who talks about things that are, entertaining or that they're nice. The problem with it is that in a jury's mind, a judge or anybody within that courtroom are in some way part of the system on the same team. And so oftentimes what the judge and the prosecutor and the officer and the clerk is on one side, and the defense attorney and the defendant are on the other side. And it's over familiarity and over ingratiating themselves with the jury could tend to make the jury lean towards one side. In another trial I was in, not in this particular trial, there was actually a sports event that was going on. It was like the Major League Series, the World Series. And the judge kept talking with the people in the jury box about it and laughing with the jury. And I thought that was inappropriate because what it does is it makes the jury, what do you think? You know what I mean? I just think that it just makes you like the judge, and if you like the judge, then you like the prosecutor, because they tend, juries can't separate that in their minds oftentimes. Yeah. It's like the system. It also minimizes the seriousness of the trial. Mm-hmm. So if I'm playing with the jury, then the jury may seem to think that this is not really a serious trial. Yeah. So there's no reason during the trial where someone's life is at stake that there should be any joking. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Because if that takes away the seriousness of it. And so I think that he was concerned with the climate of the jury, especially if he's joking with the investigator or if he's joking with the bailiff, then that does tend to particularly contaminate the jury.
There was also another incident that I believe is important, just to show the way, because to me, I had my life on the line. Everything that I work for, I come to the U.S. as a track runner, and I have a scholarship to run track and field, and I wanted to be a model citizen. I've been living in the U.S. for 18 years, don't have even a traffic tickets, don't have nothing that shows that I break the law, because I wanted to show that I'm a model citizen. I serve the community. I do whatever I can do to gain the trust and the faith of American people. This is what I've been working for, and this is what I was teaching to my family and my 3 kids. Now, my life is in danger. All I worked for 18 years is about to slip away. And then also when they bring the inmate itself, who is doing life in prison for 3 striker, and we're talking about the write-up that he has, the judge is using the same word to make it as a joke. Hey, you guys, I'm gonna write you up. And he's telling that to the inmate, and people are laughing about that. I'm gonna write you up. We're talking about these prisoners that 6 staff write him up because of his dangerous behavior, because the terrorism that he's using in prison toward the staff. And now I'm facing a judge who is playing with him.
This is the optics. You have someone who is a 3 striker, who gets on the stand and basically says that he wants to assault Mr. Diop. Then you have dialogue between that person that makes it seem like it minimizes the seriousness of the witness. The jury credibility is judged by what you say, how you act. It's a climate. And so the jury, when they look at the things that people say and the likelihood of what they will do, is based solely on their observation of that person. And anything that goes into that process can have I'll give you an example. If a witness is testifying and a judge says, you need to stop doing what you're doing, you need to pay attention, and while the lawyer is talking to you, do not speak over that lawyer. The demeanor of the jury is going to be different. But if someone is playing with that individual, it has an impact on the demeanor of the jury, because the judge is the most powerful person in the courtroom.
True.
And everything that he does, whether he intends it to or not, influences people.
True.
Right? Because people believe that in their minds, he is the law. And anything that person does has an influence on how the jury is going to perceive everything. If a judge just out of the clear blue sky says, I don't really believe this is a serious case. If he says that, that clearly would have been inappropriate, and it would have had an impact on what people thought about the case. But actions and words mean the same thing. You can't see it, but the perception has an impact on it. You know what I mean? So I think that's the climate does, and I think people don't understand that, and oftentimes that's how, unfortunately, innocent people are convicted of things that they did not do. The idea that they had an innocent man sitting in that courtroom may not have even crossed their mind. He might have been perceived that as a guilty man from the very beginning, and that's unfortunate. But I think that what's important is that you have to have the judge who has to remind the jury that he's an innocent man, and that they need to take everything that goes on in this case seriously. And I do not believe in playing and joking with the jury.
Race is always been a factor in the judicial system, and the reason I say that is, in this kind of case, if it was a white person, I think they was gonna think twice before they can prosecute him. We live in California, and the way I see the system working is the prosecutors are more likely, they're very happy to prosecute a black man because they know it's an easy way conviction. It's an easy way conviction. As if it was a white man, you're gonna be work twice harder to convict him, and you have to give a justification to the community. So for them to show that they're doing their job right, they have to show it on the minority. One other thing that I wanted to mention is this case is recorded, the infraction, on June 4th, 2014, when the actual assault happened in June 4th, 2013. And to me, I am thinking that the investigator play in that year apart just to have this case accepted by the Riverside district attorney, because actually he moved the case from June 2004 June 2013 to June 2004 on the filing, and up to now I'm just wondering why he did that, and I believe it's not a mistake.
There's one thing I think that people a statistic that really is very not very often spoken of is in this state and across the country, black medical professionals are scrutinized much more than other individuals. For example, in the state of California and in other states too, the number of black doctors who are scrutinized or subject to discipline is 4 times that of white doctors. The same thing, there is an ongoing issue with black doctors not being allowed to practice in certain hospitals. Black doctors, again, being subjected to disciplinary action. And I think the same thing would exist for nurses as well. So this is kind of like an administrative action when we talk about selective prosecution. I think this is a clear indication of what of issues with selective prosecution. There's a lot of individuals who would not have been even targeted in a case like this, where someone says, he did, it's right, it happened in 2013, and he tried to get a workers' comp claim, 3 or 4, years later, and you're still looking at this situation. They were watching him the whole time. He was scrutinized in a way that made you believe that he was being watched. There could be those who would suggest that, there's no conspiracy behind it, but I believe in numbers. As they say, numbers don't lie. And we do know that black individuals, and we're not even talking about the criminal justice system, we're talking about medical professionals. And so it's the same thing. And I think that there's also a similar issue that I understand with black correctional officers or black people in correctional system and state employees. It's a problem, and I think this goes beyond just an issue of criminal justice, so-called criminal justice. I think it goes into professionals as well. So I think that's kind of what happened with Mr. Diop. Right now, the matter is on appeal, currently pending. I believe that what's next in order is we should be hopefully in the near future getting a date to do oral arguments on those issues that we spoke about. There was also a motion for a new trial based upon the incident regarding what we had a declaration and we had witnesses that saw the investigator speaking with the jury. We wanted to get the names of jurors so that we could contact jurors to find out if this in fact happened. This was denied by the court. And so, it's just a very sad situation. It's anxiety filled because you see this situation happening right in front of your very eyes where, the system of justice wasn't just, at least from my perspective, it wasn't allowed to happen. But you can sometimes create an extremely uncomfortable environment. And I can just tell you that not only as an attorney, but as a black man, I felt extremely uncomfortable in that particular environment. It's to the extent that, it's hard to articulate, but, when you know what I mean? And I think that was kind of one of the things that I felt. And we're hoping that the Court of Appeals takes a really good look at the case, and remand the matter so that we can actually, get justice, because justice definitely, was not served. Sometimes, racism can be, intentional, overt, covert, or unintentional. I don't know which one it fell into. Most of it was, I think a lot of it was overt, and some was covert, and maybe what was happening was unintentional. But either way, I think that race played a serious role and a serious part in this case, and hopefully, ultimately we can get some sort of justice.
To our viewers, thank you so much for joining us. For more information, log on to justicewatchradio.com.